The first time I actually met Richard was in the actual room when we were going in to meet David Ayer. It was the final meeting that we were having of putting everybody together and figuring out what position everyone was actually going to be in and who was going to get what role. It was weird with me because there was something kind of familiar about Richard, and I mean, I'm not from LA, and personally I'm not 100% sure if I knew Richard or not, but sometimes you're familiar with just seeing people in rooms and stuff, and so just a visual kind of camaraderie develops of everybody kind of going in for the same thing, going after the same dream and sharing it. They're a weird kind of brotherhood develops, and I think I knew Richard from that. So we just, when we saw each other, I said what's up to him and he said what's up to me, and it was all really cordial and nice. It's kind of cool. My character is Big Evil in the movie. He's for me, there's a disenfranchisement that happens with people that are raised, that come from certain backgrounds. I certainly did in Miami, come from a certain background where we weren't the in class, you know what I mean? We were always the fringe characters in everybody else's kind of movie, which is the story of our lives. I think that unions, brotherhoods are formed in that kind of situation where people have to kind of stick together in order to have their own dreams fulfilled. And for me, like, the film was a lot about that from our perspective, you know what I mean? The way that people kind of unite. Gangs is such a loose term for a brotherhood, you know what I mean? You don't feel that you kind of fit in anywhere else, and the only place that you actually feel love and acceptance is through a group of like-minded individuals that kind of share the same vision as you do. What's funny about Richard is that and it's been the same with a lot of people that I've met, Richard has a good heart, and a lot of people that I met have a great heart. They're just caught up in really challenging circumstances that are very hard to escape. I think one of the best things that Richard did was, for me, was be big enough to be vulnerable, because anybody can be hard and anybody can put up a defense, but when you have such a tough looking exterior and then you have the courage to show your vulnerability, I think you really allow a light to shine where other people can relate to you through, you know what I mean? And I think in Richard's case it was a putting down of defenses. I think when we first met each other, we kind of looked at each other and we sized each other up, and then beyond that, I made myself vulnerable to him, and it made it okay for him to make himself vulnerable to me. And I think he was ultimately looking for that, for a place to be able to be vulnerable. I think that having to carry that package around for the rest of your life or for your entire life, it just gets too heavy and too draining, and there's a world of tears that are locked up inside of you that never get expressed, and they kind of come out in a different way that isn't always positive and doesn't always lead to healing. Everybody believes something different, and everybody's entitled to believe what they believe. I personally believe that everything happens for a reason. I think that every era and every situation normally has a shepherd that brings it into this new light. Richard did go through the things that he went through and moved over into the things that he does so that he could possibly be a shepherd for other people and show them that there's a different way of being and a different way of thinking. Just because you come out of a certain circumstance doesn't define who you are for the rest of your life. I think Richard is a case in point in that. Richard really, despite of all the hardships that he went through and despite all the challenges that he had to face in his life, he was able to make a choice to do something different. And I think that when you do that and you're able to open up and make a choice like that, you make it okay for other people to do that. And there are always going to be people who are always going to look at something that someone else is doing and criticize them. But rather than criticizing them, what they should do is challenge themselves to do something that's outside of the parameters of the things that they're used to and see what comes of it. Because if you want a different result in life, you can't do the same things over and over. And I think that Richard is a really good example of that. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. You don't have to wait till life challenges you. Make a challenge for yourself in a safe environment. And you don't have to hit 100% right from the top. But, you know, in a safe environment, go to 20%, you know, and then come back to your normal. And then the next time, go for 30%. And, like, work your way out. Like, we are all products of our parents. We're all products of our past, and we're all part of our collaborative past. And the only way that you heal the past, you can't go back in time and change the past. But when you start working on the present and you heal the present, that present leads into the future. And that's as close as anyone ever gets to moving back in time to healing or changing the past. So when you challenge yourself to do something different, and that something different comes out and you become a product of that, then you make it okay for your parents. Our parents did the best that they could. Their parents did the best that they could with them. And now it's up to us to carry the torch one step further. And how much we heal the past depends on how far in our generation we're willing to carry the torch forward. And I think that the more you challenge yourself, the more healing you create, and the more you heal your parents, the more you heal your grandparents, the more you make everything that they did exactly right, because it led you to the point where you are to be able to make a profound change in your life and possibly in somebody else's life. Good job. Keep going. I've said that to Richard many times. I've told Richard that, you know, he's an example of the way that things could be. Things aren't defined in one certain way. That's the paradox that we all fall into, is that we think that this is how it is, this is how I look, this is where I come from, this is how it is. The great changes and the great people that have changed worlds and lives and perceptions and people have traveled outside of those boxes. Richard is doing that right now. Richard becomes a beacon for other people who wants to follow that. There has to be somebody there before for you to know that that's a safe place to travel. That's a challenge, but the bigger challenge is to be the person that makes that path, that treads that new path. And you know, Richard isn't the first person to have challenged himself like that. You can look back to many other people in our parents' generations that did the same thing. But as more people start to walk it, that path doesn't seem so strange and so obscure anymore. It just becomes another path, another neurological pathway in your brain that you can follow to being a person that you want to become, to hopefully healing. You know, anyone who feels a calling or a desire to do something that goes beyond their comfortable zone is being given an opportunity to change not only the world that they live in, but the world that their children are going to live in, and the world that their parents are living in, and the world that their friends are living in. And if everybody thought that way, people like Richard wouldn't have to work so hard and go against the current so much. It would just be a normal way of being. I would just love it if more people challenged themselves to doing the things that that their higher self is calling them to do.
Well, that's money right there.
Dude, I'm doing a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena. You know, it's huge.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a Calvin Klein kind of ad like that. Like, yeah, there you go.
A little higher. How you had it before. There you go.
There you go.